Women who dated older men as teenagers that now realize they were predators. What's your story? My first boyfriend was 22 years old. I was probably 13 or 14 something. He was very controlling. The kind that tells me I'm not allowed to say no if he asks anything. He used to ignore me for days and not reply to me, and very often made me send him nudes, and I really hated it. But I wasn't allowed to refuse, or he would go find a girl who would satisfy him, a true woman. And I didn't see anything wrong at the time with this, but at least I didn't have sex with him, even though he suggested that. Now, I'm 21, and when I look back and think about it, I just feel so much shame and burden, and just asked myself why, and wonder, didn't he see that I was a freaking child? And I get filled with sadness, and I feel like that happening at such a young age really contributed to things I have done and hate. All I can take from this is to be careful in the future and make sure it won't happen to my own kids. My mother found older boys to introduce me to when I was 15 or 16. She would take me to coffee shops or sneak me into bars and charm her way with men in their 20s, only to introduce them to me. I would date them, and she would get chores done around the house that she needed. Painted kitchen, fixed cabinets, roof work, stuff like that. I remember my best friend's mom trying to warn me and to explain to me why it was wrong of my mother to let her 15-year-old date 25-year-olds. But I just thought I was really cool. It wasn't until one of them found me online and reached out a few years ago that I realized what she'd actually been doing all that time. And of course, none of these guys knew what the fuck they were doing, so the house looked like shit anyways. I was 13 with a 22-year-old boyfriend. He made me feel special, grown up. My friends were all jealous. To be honest, he was hot. A predator, but a solid 10 out of 10. We met on Xbox Live, those were the days, and started a relationship. I was in my ugly duckling phase, so was drawn into it by the attention. No boys my own age seemed interested in me. I was bullied a bit, and it was nice for a good-looking older boy to think I was pretty. He slowly pressured me into sex. Started with pushing me into sexual acts on webcam, to oral, then full sex. He always insisted on filming everything because he loved me so much he wanted to only use our videos as porn. What I wasn't aware of was the fact he was showing all his friends, and they made bets on how quickly he could get me to do something else. Whenever I pushed back, he always said, if I wanted to date a man, I needed to act like a woman. Otherwise, he would find a girl more willing to have a proper relationship with him. He then tried to pressure me into sleeping with his friends. Started with a threesome, him included. Then one night, he asked me to just sleep with his friend. I saw his friend give him money, which is when I realized this whole thing was a lie, and left. I met a dude on Adult Swim's forums back when I was around 12. He was 24 and was nice to me. Things always seemed hinky to me, even from the beginning. But I had no friends in real life and was definitely in an ugly duckling place. So I figured that if this is who is going to pay attention to me, so be it. He would tell me the things he wanted to do to me and eventually sent me a hideously low-res picture of his dick, and all I remember is trying to laugh it off and said I thought he sent me a picture of a sock. Eventually, he started asking that if we met in person, if he could tie me up and take nudes of me. He started talking about buying a plane ticket to visit me and for my address. And I guess I finally had a bad enough gut feeling and didn't go through with it. My family eventually found out about us talking, and it was a huge deal. I was rightfully banned from the internet for a while. Not that it mattered much, because I wound up meeting another awful dude older than me. But this one was locally grown, LOL. He texted that he was standing outside my middle school waiting for me. I broke out in a cold sweat, and I knew I had made a massive mistake. Edit. Some comments have been asking for details. I hesitate, because it is shameful, and I know in my heart it was wrong, and part of it is not my story to tell. But maybe this can be a cautionary story for other young women. I was going down a bad path when I was 14. I looked up to a friend that lived by her own rules. She did whatever she wanted and didn't care about consequences. If I wanted to be in with her and her friends, I couldn't be a baby. I had to do grown-up things. One day my friend came to me and casually told me she had slept with a 19-year-old, and over the course of our conversation, it came out that he hadn't used a condom. I got her help. I had to lie to do it, but my friend was angry that the guy wouldn't answer her texts. I told her to give me his number, stupidly thinking I could appeal to him to apologize and do right by her. I was trying to get him to text her back and work things out. But the next thing I know, he's asking me for my picture. He wants to know if I'm really who I say I am. I should have stopped there, but I sent him the picture. Next thing I know, he starts saying how cute I am while my friend is reading his text back to me at the same time. The whole thing is surreal. My friend looks like she's ready to blow the whole thing over, and she swears up and down she's not going to bother about the guy anymore. We let it drop. The guy keeps texting me for the next few days, trying to wheedle me, and I get this awful idea in my head. If I want to stop being treated like a baby, I have to do what my friend does, right? She doesn't care about rules or boundaries, so why should I? And I did something terrible. I flirted back at him. Things started to escalate. He would ask for nude pictures. He sent me graphic videos. Then he started planning for us to meet and have sex, always in public places. I was scared and I knew I had gone too far. I tried to blow him off. I thought he would lose interest after that. But that was the day when he texted me that he was at my school. A lot of things from those years fill me with shame, but this is the hardest to deal with because I know I didn't do right by my friend. No matter what our friendship was like, I should have told the truth and gotten her help, even if it got her in trouble. It took me a long time to realize we were both being preyed upon, and I'm not sure if my friend ever saw it that way. It honestly never clicked for me until I was much older myself. I just thought I was super mature, and that's why it wasn't weird that I was 14 with a 19-year-old boyfriend. It was a super toxic relationship. He cheated on me, stole from me, lied to me, and lied about me so much. He pretty much only came around when he wanted sex and would tell me whatever he thought I needed to hear to keep stringing me along. In my naivete, I thought this was just how grown-up relationships were. So I stayed. Until I finally got fed up at 18 years old. Isn't it funny that when I was finally old enough to date him, I no longer wanted to? I thought I was cooler than the other girls in my grade because my boyfriend was a man. Looking back, I'm sure I was an easy lay as I didn't require much from him in return, like people his own age might have. As I got older, I wondered if he ever felt odd having sex with someone who was so clearly a child. I also wondered how none of his friends, they all knew my real age, thought it was weird or called him out on it. I think that's the system they speak of when they say this kind of behavior takes a village of people who were not willing to protect the child. The irony of it all is that karma has blessed him with 3 daughters. And I'm sure he's had the scary thought more than once that another him will come along and treat his girls the way he treated me. Edit. To everyone saying 5 years isn't a big age difference. 5 years didn't matter when I was 18 and he was 23. But I was 18 when we started dating. And when we started having sex. I was a freshman in high school and he was a sophomore in college. He could buy cigarettes and vote and go to nightclubs or join the army. I was riding my bicycle to friends' house because I wasn't even old enough for a learner's permit. To the people saying they have friends who are 19 and they're 14 or the like, I can't speak on your friendships, but I can tell you he and I weren't friends. We were having a sexual relationship, which in all 50 states falls under the criminal code for statutory rape. I called off my wedding 3 months before it happened. Why? I was a 17-year-old. I'd have been 18 at the time of the wedding, about to marry a 26-year-old man that had been dating me for 3 years. I was a victim about to marry her abuser. The engagement ring, which I did eventually find out was a fake. He has money, lots of it, but that didn't matter to me. Was to buy my consent and silence, whatever, as he stuck his dick in everything that moved. He was an alcoholic, a narcissist, a pedophile. Seriously, I wasn't a 14-year-old that looked like an 18-year-old. I was a 14-year-old that looked like a 12-year-old. I loved him because I thought he was saving me from my horrid situation with my family. My mom and I moved in with her boyfriend, only to find out too late that he was an abuser. He'd take me away from it, even if it was just for a little while. I was so messed up. I ended up living in a boarding house when things finally broke in my abusive household because, of course, I was 17, and he didn't want me to move in until I turned 18. His career depended on a squeaky clean image. I ended up pregnant, having a violent end to my pregnancy that resulted in my daughter's stillbirth. Despite this all, I loved him, but he started picking at my appearance. I was gaining too much weight, even though I was at a healthy weight for my age and height. I had gotten hips and breasts. So we talked about dieting. I stopped eating. I drank water when I'd get hungry. Everything had to be low fat or no fat, low calorie or no calorie, and sugar free. It worked. I went from healthy to underweight. What made me realize that I wanted out was a box of chicken wings. I ended up moving back in with my mother after she was able to escape her ex. We lived near an indoor flea market or farmer's market that had the most amazing food vendors. I love food, and this diet was killing me. I was fucking miserable. So I decided to have a cheat day, and I went and ordered a box of hot wings from the chicken place in the farmer's market. As I sat down with my favorite movie, eating my favorite food, I realized that the extreme dieting would always be my life. I also realized that he wanting me to be so unhealthy wasn't right. I was tired all the time, cold all the time, hungry all the time. I decided, while happily munching on that box of wings, I was done. I called him, told him that I was done. It took me another 3 years to truly be done, but the very expensive wedding was done and over. He never got any deposits back. It took me almost a decade to realize that he wanted me to look like a 14-year-old forever. I was also always dismissive about the age difference, citing that I was mature for my age. I now realize it didn't matter. I was a child. Not a woman. But when I was under 18, I think I was 16, I joined a guild on WoW, and the guild leader groomed and pressured me into sending him nudes and being naked on webcam. When his girlfriend found out, she told the entire guild that I was a homewrecker. I really thought the guy cared about me, but he joined in and said I was desperate, and it was sad that I was so into him. He blocked me and ruined my reputation on that server. He was in the army, and I think 28? Pretty sure those pictures got passed around, and it is absolutely vile that these 30-plus grown adult men were distributing child porn of me and laughing about it. I blamed myself for the longest time, but telling my story to horrified faces kind of made me realize how fucked up it was. I was 16, dating my 23-year-old supervisor from work at a fast food restaurant. It started like the normal story. I thought I was mature, he made me feel special, etc. And it was fine for a few months. He seemed sensitive. He had been engaged and had his heart broken before and did seem genuinely pretty sweet. We would stay after work talking, and I'd try to sneak over to his apartment when I could. After maybe 6 months of dating, the owners of the restaurant found out and fired him. They didn't fire him for that, but found another excuse to get rid of him pretty quickly. After that, he couldn't find another job, and I felt responsible. I gave him a couple $100 a few times to help him make his rent, but after another few months, he had to move in with his dad. At this point, I started college. I went early, and he was living about an hour away from me. My parents didn't want me to see him when I still lived at home, so we spent a little more time together once I was at school. He still wasn't working and was pretty unhappy overall. He always talked about how much he loved me and wanted to get married, but I knew all along I didn't want to. I just felt so guilty leaving him. After we'd been dating for over a year, he moved several states away to live with his brother and try to get his life together. He got him a job, and everything was going pretty well. We were doing long distance, and he kept trying to convince me to transfer schools out there. After a month or two of him being gone, I finally got the courage to break up with him. He became very depressed and even suicidal. He came back to visit, and I saw him twice. Both times, I had to stop him from doing something harmful to himself. I always reached out to his family or friends to make sure they knew what was going on, but eventually, I cut off all contact. I looked him up a few years ago. He's married, has 2 kids, and is apparently a pastor or a youth pastor. I was 16 with a 21-year-old boyfriend. He was actually a longtime family friend who went to high school with my cousin of the same age and knew that whole part of my family. My cousin introduced me to him when I was spending the day with him, my cousin. The 3 of us hung out all day. I have no real memory of how we stayed in contact. It was either through MySpace or we exchanged phone numbers. Either way, we started dating, and at least outwardly my whole family approved of it. No one ever took me aside and was like, this isn't okay. No one told him to get lost. My mother was a raging alcoholic and also doing coke at the time, and I feel like I was only dating him to get easy access to my own alcohol and occasionally other drugs. It didn't seem weird to me when he wouldn't tell his family my real age. He told them I was 18. I believe that all of his friends knew. We hung out frequently with them, and none of them said anything to me either. I don't honestly know if anyone else thought this was weird for the nearly 2 years I was dating this man. Close to the end of our relationship, I was becoming more and more depressed and liking him less and less. He was becoming more and more abusive. He began putting me down a lot when no one else was around, insulting my intelligence, even though he was the one dating me. Then when I'd lash out around other people, he'd make it so he was the calm one. Eventually one day, he got angry that I had worn a miniskirt over top my swimsuit around my very gay friends, and his response to this was to choke me against the arm of my couch. I didn't leave him then. It took him raping me while I was unconscious from my medication a month later for me to be willing to leave him. I tried to call someone I believed could help me, but they didn't answer for other insane reasons. So I attempted to tell my cousin, this guy's friend. He'd been abusing me, and he refused to believe me. So at that point, I just kept it to myself. Very few people in my life knew what happened in the end, and even now at 30, no one has gone, yeah, it was weird when that grown man was dating you. I try to message girls I see posting on Reddit privately and tell them it's not normal and they should find someone they trust to get help to get out of the relationship they're in. I don't know if any of them have taken my advice, but I hope so.